I always knew that the quest for Madmartigan, the search for Madmartigan, was going to be at the heart of the story we were telling. I went to visit Val in Hollywood at his studio, and he could not have been more up for it and game and ready to come be a part of it.
We're looking for the sorcerer, Willow. I was told that once long ago you defeated the forces of evil.
You remind me of your mother.
I'm going to be really transparent. I was like, I don't know if this is going to be quite my thing, but I'm going to check it out. And then I binged all 7 episodes, and I was like, I would die for these 3 women. I loved it so much.
Ash, let me tell you, I just sent those 3 women your tweet.
Oh my God, you did?
Because that was, for some reason, for me personally, that's the kind of tweet that truly speaks to me, is like someone who comes at it with a little skepticism and then buys in. I was so thrilled, and they were so thrilled. And what you correctly sort of saw there is that they love each other and would die for each other. And hopefully that's on screen a little bit,
100%. I want to back it up to like on the set of Solo, because Warwick was talking to me about this, and I thought it was so interesting that it felt like the stars really aligned. Like, had Ron Howard not taken over that movie, would Willow have happened?
Not at all. I mean, it's a very weird thing, because that was a hard shoot, and it was, everyone sort of had to be extra sort of, had to have patience and embrace what was clearly a long and arduous process. But in the middle of it, what emerged for me was this close friendship with Ron, and this kinship specifically about Willow, which I loved, and he'd spent a career having people come up to him say, like, I love that movie, that's always been one of my favorites, and I grew up on it, and he knew that I felt this way and that I was one of those people, and I was a good person to talk to about potentially continuing the story, And then I think what really did it for all of us is that we really had a point of view about what that story could be and how to make Elora Danan and the people around her vivid and real, like Willow,
One thing I really love that you did is, I think people were like, oh, there's not going to be Madmartigan. Like, what is that going to be like? But his presence is felt so strongly throughout the show. What was the conversation there, and how that would happen?
And that's another thing where good fortune sort of smiled on this in a very unusual way, which is that, I always knew that the quest for Madmartigan, the search for Madmartigan, was going to be at the heart of the story we were telling. And that Madmartigan's daughter was going to be sort of our protagonist and would have to assume the mantle that her father had sort of left behind, and answered the question that he left on her own, which I think is a theme in a lot of stories that I like, where, we go in search of our parents and find ourselves a little bit, But where we could not have been luckier was in finding Ruby Cruz, who had been very new to acting, had just worked on Mayor of Easttown, wasn't even available when we started the casting process, and came to us late in the game, and instantly we knew that what she had was not an imitation of Val, but the same kind of originality and sort of buoyancy that he brought to the movie, she could bring in her own way to the series.
Have you spoken to Val? Is there...
The first conversation I had, and really starting with Warwick and I meeting on the set, and then Ron coming into my life and us moving that forward, the moment this seemed to be something that could even be possible, I went to visit Val in Hollywood at his studio, and he could not have been more up for it and game and ready to come be a part of it. And I told him right then that, the quest of the season would involve the search for him. And when we got to shooting and we were sort of dug in Wales, and it was really hard to get any of our American cast out, we simply pushed that story back a little further and left the mystery pregnant at the end of our first season, so that the opportunity would always exist for Madmartigan to be waiting down the road for Kit and Eric.
We were talking about conversations being born on the set. Like, this came from the Solo set. On this set, did you and Aaron talk about continuing Memphis' Nest's story? Because there's so much to be told there.
There's whenever you're with Aaron, that you find that she's constantly being approached by people who love that character and got, what's, in a way, of all the things in Solo, Memphis' Nest is kind of the purest continuation of George's legacy, because it's so brief and so economically done, and yet communicates so much emotion and pathos and humanity behind this fierce girl. Is this real heart and conviction. And what was amazing about Erin was that she conveyed it in, one or two scenes, and it stuck with people so strongly. So everywhere I go, people tell me that that's an element they love. Even within Lucasfilm, there are people who passionately would love a Cloud Rider show. So, you never know. It's a good time to be someone who's a fan of stuff, because there's opportunity to tell those stories.
Absolutely. And for Willow, you were talking already about season 2. Do you have like a finite plan, a certain amount of seasons you want to do?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly, it's not the kind of thing where I think we would go as long as they want to keep doing shows. I think there's an act structure to this story, and it has a definitive ending for me that beyond which point I can't see, because my sort of love of what's happening in television is that we're getting longer form stories, but they are really stories with a beginning and a middle and an end that can be satisfying and conclusive. So yeah, I mean, I would love to do a couple more years, but we wanted to create a show that could be satisfying at the end of this season, satisfying at the end of next season, and beyond that, whatever comes our way, we'd love to finish it.
Oh, so exciting. Well, Jon, I always love talking to you. Thank you so much for your time.
It's great talking to you too.